Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, anchor over at ABC 10, and birthday boy tomorrow. Air horns for our man Matt George. Yes, sir. We don't get to talk to you tomorrow, so we get to celebrate you today. So we'll start with this. Are you in your feelings after watching Tyrese Haliburton last night?
It's hard not to be. It's more just it's less at this point for me about Tyrese and more just about, God dang it, man. Like, I understand anybody who just feels like the Sacramento Kings are cursed. It's like, of course that shot goes 10 billion feet into the air, touches the top of the Empire State Building, then drops in, and everyone in Sacramento is like, yep, God dang it, yep, that's Tyrese Haliburton making that shot. There's only one way that was going to go in. If that was Davion Mitchell, he would have made it from half court. It's just, it doesn't matter. Like, it's hard not to feel that way about everything that the Sacramento Kings do. There's always just that element of it's going to come back and needle you a little bit. Now, I was listening to the show earlier, and I agree to some extent with Kenny of like, man, can we just enjoy what the man is doing? Because I will say this, regardless of the circumstances, the very short time that I got the opportunity to cover Tyrese here in Sacramento, he was awesome. Now, we didn't get too much face-to-face interaction because that was right towards the end of kind of the COVID time, but Tyrese was extremely charismatic, extremely approachable, amazingly likable guy, plus his WWE ties and connections. He's now a playable character, by the way, in the WWE 2K video game. So if you feel frustrated about him hitting shots, you can, I guess, beat him up in a video game if that makes you feel better. But he, like, I enjoy the drama and the game from just the basketball standpoint, but like, not very few people can, I guess, handle things the way KC can handle it, where you can just enjoy it for what it is and move on from it. It's very difficult to not have those feelings and those ties, especially when they're very familiar with every single playoffs. It feels like there's some unknown king or former king that is doing big things, and it just so happens that 2 or 3 of them have been doing it these playoffs with Tyrese and Davion. So it stings. It sucks. It has nothing to do with the dude. But I think Sacramento collectively groaned when that shot went in.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand, feeling some type of way watching Tyrese do what he's done in these playoffs. And you mentioned Davion. That was a crazy 3 days where, we had to think about why did we let him go, as well. So I get it.
Why we need a point guard.
Right. I get it. I don't know. I just feel like you drive yourself crazy always thinking about that stuff, and especially thinking about things that obviously we can't do anything about it because we don't own the team, but there's nothing the Kings can do about it. Like, I'm not going to be able to trade back for him. So I don't know. I try to just focus on what they can control and see if they can get that right.
See, now you sound like a therapist, and it's boring, and I don't like it.
Well, talk to him about the New York Knicks, and he'll lose that calm quality quick.
Diehard Knick fan.
That's the team he really loves right there.
Courtside with Chalamet.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
I still wouldn't know that guy if he walked in the studios right
I
now.
think to be honest with you,
People keep the most famous actor.
People keep saying the movies that he's. I just don't watch enough movies. That's all it boils down to. I do not watch enough movies.
And he's with Kylie Jenner, right?
He was at the game with Kylie Jenner. I don't know.
I was like, who's the guy with Kylie?
Yeah,
Kylie was the star.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the minority. I'm in the minority.
Matt, what do we know about Sacramento Kings draft workouts coming up? I know you were tweeting about that not too long ago.
We got a list of prospects, and that's about the extent of it, right? Like, these are guys that the Kings are going to do. They're going to do their homework. They're going to still handle the draft process like normal, whether they're looking at guys that they can potentially snag in the second round range, or I don't rule out the possibility at all of the Kings finding a guy that might be late lottery or fall out of the lottery that they feel that maybe they can contact the Brooklyn Nets, who have multiple firsts, or a team like the Orlando Magic, and maybe try and move into the first round to go out and grab a guy if he gets their attention. So, I mean, I think this is more the Kings doing due diligence than anything else. I mean, there aren't too many, unless you follow college basketball closely, which I, of course, do not. There's not going to be a lot of names that are on this list that are jump off the page guys, that are names that a lot of people are going to recognize, because those guys are obviously lottery draft picks or lottery prospects that Sacramento does not have any involvement in because their pick went to Atlanta. So, I mean, don't come to Locked On Kings for a extensive breakdown of all of these prospects, because you're not really going to get much there. You're more just going to get the kind of blanket level, surface level of the Kings are trying to round out this roster and keep their options open. And draft night is we say every single year, like, draft night's a great night to be aggressive and make moves. And the Kings historically don't do a lot of moves on draft night. Maybe Scott Perry will be different, but I would not be surprised at all. And this is just all gut feeling. This is nothing sourced or anything like that. I would not be surprised at all if the Kings hover and are eager to try and work their way into the first round to some extent, just to get a younger prospect to start this new regime that you have for a good price tag under contractual control. And it's a roster spot that at least is confirmed and secured, while financially you're kind of on rocky surface right now.
Two of those guys I am familiar with. The guy Ziegler, point guard at Tennessee. I actually like
Dolph's
him.
brother.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I mean, maybe
he's a bump taking machine.
Yeah, he's more my complexion than Dolph's, but maybe.
Well, hey, Kane and Undertaker are brothers. Why can't you know?
But I like him as a basketball player. Like, he's a good little point guard. He's probably a fringe NBA guy right now because he's so short. He's like 5'9", but floor general. I like him. I don't know what it means for his pro prospects, but I like him. And then RJ Felton, I know who he is. He's a shooting guard out of East Carolina. I know him because he's Raymond Felton's cousin.
Okay.
But that's it. And that's all I know about these people. The other guys, I had the list right here. Jalon Moore at Oklahoma, not familiar. Yeah, Ben Hinshaw, not familiar. Don't know. So we'll see.
Let's put it.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, let's put it this way. It would not be a bad start to Scott Perry's reign as the general manager in Sacramento for him to go and move into the late first round and draft a player that we're not really familiar with, and he turns out to be a really solid contributor to this team. Like that's a really strong start considering his situation. So let's hope that's what Perry's preparing for, and that's plan one.
I think I heard this correctly. I could be wrong. I think Scott Perry was the one that drafted Emmanuel Quickly to the Knicks. And he wasn't like this super prospect or anything. He was people looked at him as an NBA player, but he was, maybe second round or something like that from what I can remember. And it's a pretty good find right there. That's a pretty good eye. So if you could find a guy like that for the Kings in the second round, or like you mentioned, Matt, maybe jumping late into the first round and find a guy that can contribute like that, that would be much needed and very welcomed here in Sacramento from Scott Perry.
Matt George, Locked On Kings, ABC 10, with us here, going over some of the draft prospects that the Kings are having in for their second round of workouts. Of course, they're only drafting in the second round, so no one's quite as excited as they might usually be. And, obviously Tyrese having not just the night that he's having, Matt, but the playoffs that he's having. Indiana did a lot right after acquiring Tyrese Haliburton, and we talked extensively earlier how the Sacramento Kings did not do a lot right after acquiring Domantas Sabonis. One thing that they had with Tyrese, though, is a centerpiece. They had something like, okay, we're going to build around here, whether it's with Neesmith, Mathurin, Top, and of course Pascal Siakam be the other main piece. Do you think Scott Perry is this year looking for that centerpiece, or do you think he already has it?
He might be financially forced into a centerpiece. I don't know how you can look at anybody on this roster right now if you're Scott Perry and say, that's the guy I feel confident building around. Like, Domas and Levine aren't it. We already know whether it's reservations or call it what you want to call it. We already know the hesitations that he has with Zach LaVine as a winning basketball player. I think everybody is not just aware of the difficulty of a player like Domantas Sabonis, who I do love his instinct of wanting to pass first and get his teammates involved. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, but it's a bad thing to build around, especially when you just score. And everybody on the planet saw his performance in the play-in tournament because that was the only game on at the time, and that's just another example of Domas offensively not stepping up in a game where you needed him to. So I don't know how you can look at both Levine or Sabonis with any kind of confidence to build around. And then if you wanted to go like the younger route and say Keegan Murray, well, as much as I love a Keegan Murray, he's not like he hasn't shown the offensive bag to be able to feel confident building around. You could use a season to try and give him that opportunity, but I would argue that's difficult to do when Sabonis and Levine are still here and you're trying to still be competitive. And then Keon Ellis, as great of a story as Keon Ellis is, I think everyone's realistic in the fact that Keon might be an established NBA starter and might have the games where he'll hit 4 or 5 threes and continue to shoot over 40+% from 3-point range, hopefully next season. But that's a role player, a really high-end role player, a high-end starting contributor to a good team, not the guy that you build around. So the same way, if I'm Scott Perry, I look at this roster and say everybody is available for trade if the deal is right. I'm also looking at this roster and going, nobody on this roster is secure beyond the years of their contract. Like I think this season is going to be an evaluation period for Perry. And if you were to put this roster up and say you can pick any of these players to start your franchise with, I think there would be hesitations from almost everybody about any or all of them. I don't think the Kings have a lot of number 2 guys. They don't have a number 1. And I don't think there's much reason to believe that any of these guys will be or will suddenly become a number 1, regardless of how good their numbers were last season or how much money they're making.
The one thing I'll say about that, and once again, we're talking about championship, right? Like there's 2 different conversations to have. If you want to be a playoff team, I think there are some teams that made the playoffs where you look at them and say, I don't have a guy that I want to start my franchise with, but they're good ball players. They're able to get you in a situation where you make the playoffs. Championship team, I think you definitely need one of those guys, but I think I say that to say, like, they can have some guys that you're still trying to figure out, who you want to put around them if you want to be around them and be successful to a certain degree next year. I look at one example I have, Houston. I don't know if they got a player that you'd want to build your franchise. Like Sengun, I don't think so. Men, maybe. But they have a good collection of guys that work together with what they're able to do. Obviously, 2 seed is way higher than I'm even talking about. But being a top 6 team, I think there's enough talent on the Kings roster right now that you could add some things with it. Maybe a trade for DeMar, and you can be a good team next year.
But you can't compare the Kings to the Rockets because the Rockets core is 24, 25, 26 years old. The Sacramento Kings accelerated their core to an average age of like 31. Like that's the difference. Is if you're at least if I'm going into a season with the Rockets, I might still be curious. Can Şengün be my number 1? Can Amen Thompson be my number 1? But you're able to ask those questions confidently when you have a young core that you still feel like time is on your side to figure that out, especially when they're coming off the season that they just had. It's a very similar way to how we felt about De'Aaron Fox maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. There wasn't a guarantee that De'Aaron Fox was going to be a number 1. I think we all felt like he had the possibility of doing it. Let's just see what he could be when he gets to the playoffs. Then he has the year of being clutch player of the year. Then he has one of the greatest offensively scoring-wise playoff debuts in NBA history at the time. And you're like, okay, there it is, right? Granted, he's a little bit older than these guys are in Houston, but it's like, okay, this is a guy that's entering his prime. That guy's now gone. And that's not to make this about De'Aaron Fox. It's just to use Fox as an example of that was a guy that you felt had the potential to be your number 1 that also age-wise kind of fit that timeline. Domas entering his 30s, right? Zach LaVine, we kind of know what he is. He's in his 30s. DeMar DeRozan, who we don't expect to be on this team, is in his mid-30s. Like, we know what DeMar DeRozan is. So that's if I'm the Sacramento Kings, I'm just looking at everything and going, I don't see, and this kind of feeds into the feelings that I have about a lack of excitement for next season or a lack of optimism, is I don't see a future. I don't see a direction. I don't see a core. I see a collection of players that you might be able to win with short term. And if that's what you want, then great. If you want to try and at best be a 6 seed, then great. That's not appealing from the standpoint of someone who's looking beyond this season and ticket sales, just to me.
Do you have a wish list, I guess? Do you have like a group of players that I'd like to see the Sacramento Kings go after this player, go after that player? Have you thought that far ahead? Have you tried to construct what this new version of the Sacramento Kings might look like or could look like?
There's always been players out there that are appealing to me. For example, like if the Kings need a point guard, I know the Pacers are still playing right now. Like if you want to try and make a play for like a TJ McConnell or something like that, I'm all for the Drew Holiday idea if that's what you want to do short term. Although I don't know why the Boston Celtics would ever do that. Like I don't know why they would take it would have to be
to get off money. That's
big
all.
time money.
Right. So it's DeMar and Keon Ellis and draft compensation. I don't know. Like, I don't know what that looks like. So maybe they want to go that route. And like, I always talk myself around in circles and fall into the same problem of I don't know. I still don't know what the clear direction of this organization is. And if the direction is to continue to win, I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy it. I think Scott Perry is an incredibly bright and confident basketball mind and basketball executive. I don't buy him taking over this job and going, we are in a position to win right now. You're not. Like, you're in a position to tread water. So I have a hard time looking at anything this summer or having a wish list of guys that are achievable to kind of go out and get this summer, because I just think you're stuck. Right? Like, what I want is more vague. What I want is, one, a reason to be excited again, or two, a piece or two, or the start of something, whether it's an identity or a core or something to build towards. I want to, when we're 30 games into the season, regardless of how the record is going, I can see the steps towards something, or I can know what they're walking towards. Right now, it just feels like they're on a path where it just looks infinitely in the distance, but the distance is blurry. You don't know where you're going. You don't know where the path leads to. This is just what you have. So the most important thing for me, for the Kings to identify this summer, is who they are and what they're trying to do. And Perry might not tell us outright. Doug might not tell us outright, because they might still be formulating it. But anything the Kings do this summer, I feel, in the grand scheme of things, is probably going to be pretty inconsequential, unless they pull out something that either surprises me or they go like crazy, like we talked about last week, D'Lo, and say, all right, let's go all in for Trae Young and just light the world on fire and see what happens. Like, those are the routes. I feel like you're either going to go nuts, which I hope you don't, with your draft compensation, just try for one more major swing, or you're going to just kind of tread water, not necessarily run it back, but make minor moves and get through this next year. At that point, then I can probably start building a wish list when it comes to draft prospects. And maybe when we get closer to the trade deadline, when we have a better idea of what Perry thinks about some of these players.
I think you do know the direction of this franchise. I just don't think you like it. They're going to just I think they're going to try to build on what they have.
Okay. With what?
Yeah, I that's what I mean. Like, I think this is what they're doing, and I feel like you know that. You just don't like it. Like, I don't.
Is that a direction, or is that stubbornness? That's there's no plan there.
Or is it Mariah Carey doing the best you can with what you got? You know what I mean? Like, that's what you have. People, I'm not trying to shade them, because I like both of these guys, so I don't necessarily agree. when people always talk about the Levine contract being a bad contract, in some respects, you offer also a hamper with that Sabonis contract. That's a nasty contract too, in a lot of ways. So you can't do nothing with those guys this summer, or well, I shouldn't say you can't. It'd be very difficult to do something with either one of those guys this summer. So they're there, and you got to work around that a little bit. But also with them being there, those are two good basketball players. You had one, a savvy player around them, maybe another good basketball player. I don't think you're as far away from being a playoff team while you kind of reset the books a little bit in the meantime. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's inconceivable. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but say, I'll ask you again, Matt, like I asked them. You had Drew Holiday, a defensive minded guard to help out on the perimeter, to help out Keegan Murray and all this other stuff. And you've got those two guys. You got Malik Monk, Keon Ellis. You got Devin Carter as well. Is that like a bottom 5 team in the West, in your opinion?
No. I mean, I think you have a better chance of accomplishing, I guess, your goal, which is avoiding the play-in and being a legitimate playoff team. But again, for what? If it's just for a year and it's just for ticket sales and it's just to say, hey, we're having another minimum 2 playoff games in Sacramento, okay, I'm thinking beyond that. I don't think that's not a job well done for Doug Christie. That's not a job well done for Scott Perry. I don't think either of them, I think they would look at it in the short term and go, we made the best out of the situation, I guess. But I don't think that has much to do at all with establishing yourself and giving yourself a direction beyond that. And this is all fallout from past decisions. It has very little to do with Doug and Scott at this point. This is the position that, whether Monty was asked to or told to or decided to do it on his way out, put this organization in, for lack of a better term. So, I mean, I don't view this Kings team going all in for a 6 seed when that is their ceiling. And I don't have any reason to believe they will reach their ceiling. If we're talking statistics, you're looking at putting yourself a probability. You're looking at putting yourself in the exact same position that you're in, which is mid. And now you're going into another offseason where maybe, there's only 1 year left on the Zach LaVine deal. Okay, so now maybe you can move that a little better. It's 1 year off of Domantas Sabonis' contract. Maybe you can move that a little bit better. Now you have your draft pick, but that draft pick is probably going to be 10th, 11th, 12th. And I'm still asking the same question next summer after a year of where is your centerpiece? What are you building around? Do you think you can trade Zach LaVine on an expiring deal to get that centerpiece? Do you think you can find that centerpiece with 11th or 12th overall pick? Like, the concept of tanking doesn't sound appealing to me either, but anything sounds better than the Kings just being what they are, which is mid. And I have a hard time believing that there's much that they can do this summer to help them escape that. I just think that's what they are. That's where they're at. So the idea of making it being a 6 seed in the playoffs, unless they somehow win a playoff series, which would be fun, I don't view that as steps in the right direction. I view that as treading water.
What would a step in the right direction be for you? Like, what could the Kings do over the course of the next May, June, July, 3 to 4 months that would be like, okay, I see what we're doing here?
I think if they were, the best thing that I could think that they could do is stay true to what Perry and Doug have laid out as kind of the core traits, like identity traits of how they want this team to be built, and make roster moves that make sense in that case. Even if I'm aware that the roster moves are probably not going to be big, probably not going to be significant. Like, we have fun with the idea of a Trae Young all-in crazy trade. That does not fit in at all with any of the identity traits that Doug Christie and Scott Perry have laid out. That is just a let's go crazy and one last swing to make this work. So that doesn't necessarily fill that as much as I would be intrigued by it. Same thing with like a Zion Williamson trade. Like, if you want to go crazy and try for one more thing, as long as you're not completely mortgaging your future, I guess go for it from an entertainment value standpoint. But if you're trying to set the foundation for a sustainable winner here in Sacramento with Perry and Doug at the center long term, because the best thing for everybody is for Perry and Doug to still be here 10 years from now. That's what we want, right? That's the goal. We want these guys to have many, many contracts and be here for a long time. We want Doug Christie to be the head coach of the Sacramento Kings until he doesn't want to do it anymore. Like, that's what we want. If you're starting the foundation for that, I think you are trying to turn DeMar DeRozan into players that are less exciting, one or two guys that fit that identity. And then when we get to training camp, we see, and we get to preseason, we see, even if there are going to be problems, there are going to be gaps, there are going to be struggles, we see elements of that identity. That doesn't mean that Zach LaVine can't still shoot 20 times a game and the Kings can't put up 43s and try and win basketball games. They can do that. But I want to see the team in general reflecting the traits and the identity of their coach and their front office. Because we haven't seen that really, even when the Kings were the best offense in the league 3 years ago when they made the playoffs under Mike Brown. That wasn't really the identity of Mike Brown. That was just kind of the roster, maximizing the roster that we had. And we all know how that played out. I want to see what the Rockets built in Houston by them taking the identity of Ime Udoka and really running with it. I want to see semblance of that. That is what I'm asking for. I don't know specifically player-wise what that looks like at this point, D'Lo. That's why I'm not the GM. But that's what I'm looking for. That would give me, okay, I see something here. I feel something here. Because like I told you last week, the thing I have the most confidence in this organization right now is Scott Perry and Doug Christie. They're the only thing that I'm looking at with longevity. So make that be the identity.
Yeah. Quick follow-up. Do you think the identity of a team fits the coach or fits the players?
I think it's a balance, but I think the Sacramento Kings have done a horrible job of finding and striking that balance over the last couple of seasons. Like, if we were to have a retrospective conversation about Mike Brown and he tried to not mold but force a roster into an identity that wasn't necessarily theirs, right, and it had negative ramifications, I think that is a very fair and honest conversation. And I remember during training camp of year 2 after the playoffs, asking similar questions to Mike and having those hesitations with Mike and saying, hey, Mike, like, how much offense are you willing to sacrifice for this? Mm-hmm. And Mike gave me a very straight up answer. He said, I believe the offense was so good that if we drop off a little bit but improve significantly defensively, it'll work out. Well, you improved a little bit, especially at the end of the season. You improved kind of a lot of it at the end of the season, but your offensive identity dropped off so hard that you didn't, like, that identity was gone. So it's going to be, of course, on Doug and Mike Woodson and Bobby Jackson to try and maximize the roster that they have. But that doesn't mean that Scott Perry just throws a roster out there to Doug Christie after laying out his 7 identity traits and telling us verbatim, this team needs more of this. This team needs more of this. If he doesn't do any of that and then tells Doug to do your best with this, then the Kings are working against themselves. So Perry clearly feels or says what the Kings need. Doug Christie, we know, has a history or a reputation of the type of player that the Kings need more of. So go out and get those players for him. Like, I don't want to have any semblance of doubt the way that I had with Mike Brown. I would have much preferred the Kings go out and get Mike Brown, a bunch of guys that Mike wanted, and then Mike failed, because then we would clearly go, okay, Mike, you were wrong. The fact that we can still have a conversation months, year, whatever later and say, did Mike get the players that he wanted? Or did the Kings do a good enough job getting Mike those guys? I want that doubt gone. You know Doug Christie, you know Scott Perry, they laid out the identity that they want. You don't have to completely change the roster overnight or in one summer, but go out and turn DeRozan into a couple of those guys that fit that, and let's see how they do. That's the step one. That's a building block.
Okay. They talked about it earlier, man, just making sure Scott Perry and Doug Christie in this aspect are on the same page. Mm-hmm. The previous regime, it didn't seem like that was the case. You know, I'm not even saying who's right or wrong, but they just did not see building this roster the same way. You want to get your coach and your general manager in cohesion with how you want to build this roster. And I think that would be a great first step compared to what happened the last time.
Yeah, I just think the cohesion is important. And again, I'm not looking for your starting five to be five guys that perfectly fit Doug. Like Zach LaVine's going to be here. I don't think Zach LaVine perfectly fits Doug or Perry. But if you could have a couple of guys that do to add to Keegan and Keon, who I think fit very, very well, but then you can have Zach LaVine be in the 20 to 25 point per game score. Okay, you've got something there like that. I'm okay with that. But building your team, going back to one of the questions you asked about Sabonis or LaVine being the core of your franchise, I guess the best way to answer that question is I look at those two players and I line them up with the traits that Perry and Doug have laid out, and I don't know if they fit enough of them for me to think that is the guy that they can confidently look at as the core of their new look Sacramento Kings. That's just where I feel this team is at.
Do you think Keegan can be better than the version that we've seen over the first 3 years of his career?
Absolutely. I just don't know if he's ever going to realize it, if he's ever going to take the opportunity to realize it. And like, it's not.
Well, hold on. Can you expand on that a little bit? Do you think he's holding himself back a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, how many times have we seen Keegan Murray have a big first quarter and then not shoot the ball for the rest of the game? Like that happens too many times for it to just be the Kings' fault. Like Keegan, demand the basketball, speak up. And we've heard even players, coaches, Mike Brown, even like kind of messing with him, but also not like trying to get him to open up a little bit, talk a little bit more. Right? Like, I think Keegan, now you're going into year 4, like the shy rookie stuff, he doesn't have to change his personality. We know who Keegan is as a personality. He's not all of a sudden going to become loud and boisterous. But Keegan Murray should not be shy with his teammates on the basketball floor anymore. Like, I'm cooking, give me the ball. Or run some plays for me. Or let's get me involved here. Or get me my shots. Or I'm going to have the confidence to try something. Like, you're in year 4. Go for it. So yes, I do think there's an element of Keegan Murray. Like it's not DeMar DeRozan's fault because DeMar came in and took shots away from Keegan. That's not why Keegan took a step back. Now there's only one basketball and only so many shots to go around. So it is accurate to say, I think, that if DeMar DeRozan weren't on the roster last season, that Keegan Murray probably would have shot the ball more. Doesn't mean that Keegan would have been better or the Kings would have been better. In fact, they probably would have been worse, which in this case might have been a better thing for them to be worse because they potentially would have saved the draft pick. I don't know. However you want to spin it, however you want to look at it. But I do think the Sacramento Kings have yet to fully, because they drafted a player and added him, a rookie, and added him pretty much right away to a starting lineup that had playoff and win now expectations. I don't think the Sacramento Kings have fully committed to, let's give Keegan the ball for an extended period of time and let him go and let him try some stuff. I don't think the Kings have ever gotten there. So I think there's a balance to be struck. Can whether it's Doug Christie or Mike Woodson, who's an offensive genius, like are these guys that can empower Keegan to go and look for his shot a little bit more? And then can Keegan actually take that empowerment onto the court and then turn to LaVine or turn to Domas or whoever's running point guard and say, I'm feeling it. I got a mismatch. Let me take this shot. Like that's what's next for Keegan. And I want to see that this season. It doesn't mean I believe he's going to turn into the all-star that the Kings thought he was when they drafted him. I think that ship has probably sailed. But can Keegan be better than 12, 13 points a game? Hell yeah, he can. And he can sure as heck shoot better than 33, 34% from 3.
Yeah. How old are you turning tomorrow, Matt?
31. Ugh.
I forget sometimes. Matt's a child. Matt's a child too. You're working all day tomorrow. You're not doing anything fun to celebrate at all. No Bottle Rock in Napa. No nothing. No Kendrick Lamar in L.A.
Nothing like that. I don't have KC and D'Lo money, and I'm certainly not chilling and partying. I'm not partying with Kamara in New York either. So I'm gonna be.
None of us are partying with Kamara in New York.
So no, it's gonna be low key. It's gonna be low key, and I'll work and then go home and spend time with family. And hope that one day, someday, I'll be able to cover a Sacramento Kings game on my birthday. That's the dream. The Kings are playing basketball on May 23rd. That is the dream.
Man,
Goodness gracious.
boy,
It's asking a lot.
that's going to be 47.
That early? That soon?
Well,
Before 50 would be great.
I was trying to be positive. I'm going to take you to Q for your birthday. I'm going to take you and Brittany to Q for your birthday. Not tomorrow, but I got to get through this Vegas trip first, and then we're going to go.
Isn't that the restaurant that this guy owns?
Yeah, that's the one that Kenny owns. That's if you believe the streets, it's the one Kenny owns.
Hey, Casey, at least he didn't insult you to your face like someone insulted me when they thought I was Deuce. So at least they were excited to see you.
That was a classic.
Hey, Deuce, I used to listen to Matt's podcast, but it sucks now. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Great stuff as always, Matt. We appreciate you, my friend. Happy birthday. We're going to head over to 102.5 if you want to join us there. We got lots to do. We got Wiz Khalifa tickets to give away as well as Keisha Cole. If not, we'll see you tomorrow beginning at 10 a.m. Exhibit. Going to be in studio with us tomorrow on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Vamos, Alex Rodriguez.